Josh Hedges, Zuffa LLC, Getty Images. Jeremy Stephens knocked out duo Choi to prevail in the main event of UFC Fight Night 124 at Scottrade Center in St. Louis. In the second of the two main event fights, Jessica Rose Clark earned a unanimous decision over Paige VanZant. Stephens provided the most excitement on the night as he dispatched of Choi in the second round. The turning point came when Stephens hit Choi with a hard right hand that sent the 26-year-old to the canvas, where Stephens followed up with a right elbow. Choi tried to keep Stephens back, but Stephens landed another vicious right-handed shot. The referee stepped in after the 31-year-old Iowa native hit a series of left elbows without reply. The UFC shared a replay of the final sequence. Below are the full results from UFC Fight Night 124 and a brief overview of how the rest of the main card shook out. UFC Fight Night 124 results. Main card: Jeremy Stephens def. Duho Choi. TKO. Round 2. 36. Jessica Rose Clark def. Paige VanZant. Unanimous decision. 30-27. 29-28. 29-28. Kamaru Usman def. Emil Meek. Unanimous decision. 30-27. 30-27. 30-27. Darren Elkins def. Michael Johnson. Submission. Round 2. 22. Preliminary card: James Krause def. Alex White. Unanimous decision. 29-28. 29-28. 29-28. Marco Polo Reyes def. Matt Frevola. Knockout. Round 1. 1-0. Irene Aldana def. Talita Bernardo. Unanimous decision. 30-27. 30-27. 30-27. Kyung Ho Kong def. Guido Canetti. Submission. Round 1. 4:53. Jessica I def. Kalindra Faria. Split decision. 29-28. 29-28. 28-29. J. Aldrich def. Danielle Taylor. Unanimous decision. 29-28. 29-28. 29-28. Mads Burnell def. Mike Santiago. Unanimous decision. 29-28. 29-28. 29-28. The biggest moment of the night didn't involve any of the fighters on the card. Former welterweight champion and UFC Hall of Famer Matt Hughes walked down to the octagon nearly 7 months after a truck he was driving collided with a train. Doctors placed Hughes in a coma shortly thereafter. The UFC shared the tribute video that played before Hughes' arrival, as well as Hughes' arena entrance to overwhelming cheers from the St. Louis crowd. The scene moved many on social media. In the co-main event, VanZant suffered her third defeat in her last 4 fights. An arm injury played a role in the result. Fox Sports. UFC shared a clip that showed that VanZant informed her corner she suffered a fracture in her right arm in the first round. The fracture appeared to come when she misfired somewhat on a spinning back fist, with her right wrist and forearm catching Clark in the head. Since she was essentially fighting with one arm, VanZant was unable to land many significant blows, and she couldn't get too bold with offense for fear of aggravating the injury. That opened a door for Clark, who remained careful so as not to receive a left jab or kick from VanZant. The 30-year-old picked her spots well and connected with enough to be the clear winner. The main card began with a bit of an upset as Darren Elkins submitted St. Louis native Michael Johnson in the second round. Johnson appeared to be in the driver's seat after looking like the stronger fighter in the first round. He maintained that advantage until Elkins got Johnson on his back and locked in a rear naked choke. With nowhere to go, Johnson had little choice but to tap out. UFC heavyweight Chase Sherman was among those calling for Elkins to get a marquee fight after notching his 6th win in a row. whereas Elgin's turnaround was a big surprise. Kamaru Usman delivered exactly what was expected and largely dominated Emil Meek. Usman was especially adept at getting Meek on the ground, registering 8 takedowns in the fight, according to UFC.com. Meek, on the other hand, didn't even get an official takedown attempt. Usman's strategy wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing, but it's hard to argue with the results. Madunki's Chamatkar Sandhu and former MMA fighter Dan Hardy offered differing opinions regarding the action inside the octagon. Hardy's assessment brought to mind UFC president Dana White's comments after Tyron Woodley beat Damian Maia at UFC 214 last July. White lamented how he thought Woodley could have wrapped things up before the fight went to the judges' scorecards. As good as Usman performed, it wasn't all that unfair to wonder how good he would have looked if he had been a little more aggressive with Meek. After the fight, Usman called out Colby Covington. Covington would be a stern test for the Nigerian Nightmare, and it could prove an opportunity for him to silence his skeptics.